Welcome to the Clinician Researcher Podcast. I'm your host, TSC on Webinar, and it is such a privilege to be here. It's such a pleasure because I have the amazing Dr. Betty Pace. Betty, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me.
I don't know if I've ever told you, Betty, but you transformed my life because you were director of the Pride Program. You are the director of the Pride Program at FT in Augusta. And that was the first time I ever really had anybody tell me about what it meant to succeed in academic medicine. So I want to say thank you for that. And I want to thank you on behalf of all of us who've come through Pride
My
and
pleasure.
been touched by you. Thank you. So, if you would please introduce yourself to the audience, how did you come upon this journey of being a clinician turned researcher and a badass one at that?
Well, thank you so much for kind introduction and the vote of confidence for what I do. But my journey started a long time ago as a teenager when I came into contact with someone with sickle cell disease, and that impacted me so much. I said I wanted to do research in sickle cell disease and take care of individuals with the disease. So from that point on, I worked very hard in high school, college, with that goal in mind is to go to medical school and take care of patients with sickle cell disease and do research. It's a long road to medical school and residency, and then pediatric hemonc. I'm a hematologist. So another year, 3 years in that. And then I did a postdoctoral for 4 years. Because in order to be competitive at research, bench research, I felt I needed more training. Even though I trained as a medical doctor, I didn't have the bench research training. So after the 4-year postdoc, I then said, I'm ready. And I started my lab, seeing patients, but I wanted to have a teaching lab. So I think that's kind of where the teaching, mentoring part of it came along. I made it so I was doing the research I wanted to do. But then I also wanted to develop my other talent, which would be for teaching and mentoring. So it started off with just students in my lab who rotate through the lab, medical students. We always had a lot of people want to spend the summer in the lab. And then in 2006, said, okay, let's start a formal training. And I applied to the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, and we were funded to start the Pride program. Now I have to say what it means. That program to increase diversity in health-related research. And we have been going ever since. We're in our 15th year. We focus on mentoring and training young people like yourself, underrepresented junior faculty, teaching you how to develop a career plan, research, balance between your clinical and research, and apply for grants so you can become independent investigators. So after 15 years, we've been very successful. We've trained 114 mentees, and they're all, majority doing very well with grant funding, K Award, R01, Harold Amos. Very, very impressive group. But I wouldn't change anything. It's a lot of work, but I love doing it. And seeing young people flourish, that gives me such a great pleasure. So like today, coming back and talking with you and your success, I do remember our conversations about what you should do, but I think it's about the mentoring and instilling the confidence that you can do this. And we don't have that as underrepresented, especially underrepresented women. So I think that is what drives me to do this, and I'll keep doing it. So.
Wow. And thank you for your work. Now, one thing that you said, you've been very successful. I love the way you own it. And you have been very successful. This is nationally known that among programs throughout the country that are focused on increasing representation in research, you have been one of the most, if not the most successful program. What is your secret sauce?
I think it comes from within and your dedication and my genuine desire to see young investigators be successful. And that makes me happy. So I work really hard. And when that happens, then that gives me the fuel to keep going and do it again. Sometimes, some of the young people say I was a taskmaster, I worked them a little too hard. But, sort of like your children, there's a certain reason more than hurt you kind of thing. But I think it is really the caring. I try to communicate to the trainees that I really care about you and your success. And when you're successful, I'm successful. That's the way I view it. And so I think people really can pick up on that and the long-term relationships. I still communicate with people who first started in the first year in 2007. We're like a family, a network. And so I think they get a lot out of it. They saw the value. And it's interesting you should ask about that. I just saw an article yesterday that was published from NCI. It's still talking about how underrepresented junior faculty, they do not have mentoring opportunities. Same story. Same story. So NHLBI had a lot of insight when they started the PRIDE program, and it is very successful. Not just my program, but all the other programs that are funded too. There's 8 other programs. And I think NHLBI is in it for the long haul and really want to increase diversity. So secret sauce is love, I guess.
I love it. I was going to ask you next, what is the biggest challenge that you see for increasing representation in science?
It is hard work. You have to, when the young people come into my program, I think it's the lack of confidence that they can do it. And so if you don't have someone encouraging you and teaching you at the same time and mentoring on how you can be successful, then you just, drop out and say, I can't do this. And, I'm not saying that just going and taking care of patients is less important, but you'll say, I'm going to do what I can do best. I'm going to go see patients and become a clinician. But for the research part of it, you have to instill the confidence that they can do it. And I think that's really important. And if you don't get mentoring, where's it going to come from? Most people in your family don't know anything about research. When you can't talk to family members, I try to describe my research and be like, what? So I think the early on mentoring, even high school, undergraduate, and instilling in underrepresented students and STEM students that they can do it as well. And keeping that confidence going, even through junior faculty, because you still need the support, for sure. But I think that is a key problem. The resources, the mentoring, it's just not there. It isn't.
Well, one thing that I see that's unique about your program is that you take on faculty who have already started, have maybe even been on faculty for a few years. And many times I hear the sentiment that, well, if you finished your fellowship and you didn't get the research training, it's too late for you. Can you speak to that?
That's a very good question, and probably sort of it alludes what I was saying previously. When I finished my fellowship, I myself felt I was not ready to compete as a faculty member. So that's why I was fortunate enough to get Harold Amos funding and to do a postdoctoral fellowship and get more training. So if you want to be a physician scientist and have like a research lab, independent lab, and still see patients, you really do need more training. And I recommend that for people who really want to dedicate their career to be a research scientist. However, there are other areas that you can go into and be very successful doing clinical research, which you probably don't need more postdoc. You can get a master's and enhance your ability there. So there's many ways for MD by training to expand their capability to do research. It doesn't have to all be bench research. Clinical, and now the implementation research, all these types of research are very valuable. So you can become a more general clinician scientist, Physician scientist traditionally refers to people who want to do the bench research. But there's many tracks that you can go on. But the key is when you get your first faculty position is negotiating to have the time to continue to develop. And that's the one thing that I think is a weakness of the program, is that NHLBI does not allow us to recruit fellows.
Mm.
If we could get a third-year fellow, help them negotiate their package, find their faculty position, I think we have a jump start in the process. But when you all came to us, you've already got your faculty position. Look, you're already stuck with a bad package. So what can we do? 90% clinical and 10% research time. Okay. But we still try to work. We've had some people like that in the prior program. They were not as successful, but I think it was still valuable for them
Mm.
to get that experience, to feel like they're a part of a network. So there's more that comes out of the prior programs than, always getting a grant. But those people, even when they didn't get grant, they learned better, they learned how to operate better, and they got the promotions, so they
Mm.
were better physicians and able to compete better. So there are a lot of different things that can come out of the program.
Now, let me ask you this. You mentioned something about kind of you already have the faculty position, you're stuck with a position that doesn't support research.
Mhm.
Who are the people who succeed versus those who struggle in the Pride program?
The most successful mentees are those who have protected time
Mm.
when they come to the Pride program, because then they have the time to really spend in Pride, learning what they need to learn, doing the grant writing, publications. We have some extra training opportunities we have now for Pride, taking advantage of their Pride mentor, his extra expertise. So they have the time to make it happen. So the most ideal training would be an MD who has a 70-30, 70% protected time. And we have MDs like that. I'm very impressed. They negotiated nice packages and have 70% protected time for 3 to 5 years. So if they can build, get that care award, get the research going, et cetera. And some are doing bench research and some are doing clinical research. The most challenging is the basic scientist who's at the teaching faculty,
Mm.
teaching institution, I should say, and they do a lot of teaching. So their duties are looked at doing all kind of coursework, different courses, 3 or 4 courses a semester, and then you can't do anything. You're always teaching and grading tests and taking care of the students. So those trainees tend to have more of a challenge. But I would say whether you're doing bench, clinical, it's having the protected time, and number 2, some financial support. A starter package to help you get your program going. Hire some people to help you. It's hard to start a program when you're the only person. You need some research assistant, associate, something to help you no matter what your focus is. So having protected time, funding, and then key is that you're in a department where your leadership, whether it's your division chief or chair of peds or medicine, they really want to see you succeed. And you're in a good environment. You can come to all the private programs in the world, but if you go back home and no one's supporting you, we just put you right back into the same environment. And unfortunately, that happened with several of our private mentees as well. So it's complicated.
It is. It is. I will tell you that I was one of your mentees who joined
Mhm,
at 80%
mhm.
clinical time with 20% protected time.
Yes.
And it's definitely been a journey. And I would
Well, now
say that
remind me, what year did you
I was in
attend?
2015, the year
Okay.
my life changed forever.
Wow, it doesn't seem like it's been 8 years. Wow, wow. So talk a
Yes.
little bit about what your success has been too and what you got out of the Pride.
Absolutely. So I think the biggest thing I got out of the Pride program was just awareness. Like I think, nobody tells you what you're supposed to do as a faculty member. I didn't even really realize I wasn't ready. I was a clinician. I just figured being a clinical person and doing research, it was going to be okay. And I came to my faculty position and I wasn't felt to be qualified to
Mhm.
get a research supported position, and so I got the 20% protected time, and I thought, well, okay, I can make this work. And what I didn't realize was it was not a setup for success. And
Mhm.
so I was doing these projects and really running with them, trying to move them forward. And when I came to the Pride program, I remember you just laid out for us what we should be pursuing in as a faculty member. And I remember that whole week, it was probably 2.5 weeks, I feel like. And I was like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, it was like you blew my mind. I was like, nobody told me. How is it that nobody told me that this is what I'm supposed to be doing? And I
Mhm.
remember asking you, you may not remember, you've had so many of us, but I
Mhm.
was like, why is nobody telling me that this is what I'm supposed to do?
Mhm.
And I said, but what if we're not supported to do that? And you said you're gonna have to start to have those conversations. And so
Mhm.
I went back to my institution and I said, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be submitting a K.
Sure.
And I think people were like, you're not ready. I'm like, no, I need to submit it now.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
They were the worst Ks ever,
Yeah.
but they got me started.
Yes. Yes, and it gets you on the right track, and you're fortunate you had people who supported you. Now, that doesn't
Absolutely.
excuse the fact that they were not mentoring you
You
properly.
know, it is what it is. One of the
Yeah.
things that you mentioned earlier is caring, right? And I think what I've run into in my experience, and I'm glad to be where I am, is that if people don't believe you can, then there's no energy to help you. They say, "Well, you just can't do it. Too bad."
Mhm.
But there's something else, and then they send you off to do the work you can do. And
Yes.
that's where I found myself, where I felt like I didn't have people who believed I could. And
Mhm.
you were the first person who believed I could and gave
Mhm.
me the tools I needed to move forward.
Mhm.
And so it took me a long time. I was doing heart transplant research when I met
Mhm.
you. I'm a hematologist. I was doing heart transplant research,
Yes.
and it was a few grants. Actually, probably put in the Amos maybe 3 or 4 times. And it was
Mhm.
some of the feedback I finally got where it was like, but what is a hematologist
I
doing
know.
doing heart transplant research? And it was, I was doing other research on the side. And then it
Mhm.
was the first time I said, well, let me just bring the stuff I've been doing that I care about and make it
Sure.
into a project.
Sure.
And that was what got me the Amos. And along the way, I had started getting support. So I started on a
Mhm.
K-12. I got the Amos. And since then, I've gotten
Mhm.
some other foundation
Mhm.
awards. But
Very good.
it's really been a journey. It's been a journey.
Okay.
And many doors were closed because I was
Sure.
the phenotype of people who don't succeed, right?
Mhm.
But it really did take you jump starting me. And that really made a difference for me.
But that's interesting because I think in your case, I always viewed it as you're a hematologist doing cardiac, transplant research, but it was what was available to you.
Mm,
It was what you could actually move into, and no one else was competing, no one else wanted it. So you took it and made it into something. And you're still doing hematology type of research, but it was with cardiology patients. But I think that so often as young faculty, no one's basically sitting down and say, "Okay, what do you really love? What do you want to do? What type of research, what kind of career path development you want to have?" And then developing and supporting what's in your heart. And most people don't get that. Well, you've been successful. You've been able to take that, and I thought very interesting research. I think it's kind of cool. Your hematologist doing this kind of research, and you've been successful in the field and leading in the field. So so often, young people basically end up doing what samples are available that they can analyze or what can get them started. And I think doing that is better than just sitting and not doing anything. And they'll love for you to go to clinic and see patients. There's never a shortage of patients in clinic. So, never. So you really have to be determined. If you don't get the protected time in the first, 5 years of your career, you have to try to steal time from different places and be successful because, after you've gone 5 years, it's so hard to get started that late. It's already you're too late as
mm,
far as I'm trying to become competitive on a national basis if you sit
mm.
and see patients for 5 years. So, gotta hit the ground running.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure.
Wow. Yes, I want us to talk about the Pride program.
Mhm.
How do people apply? How do they hear about it?
Okay.
How do they get in
Mhm.
on it?
So we're currently in between funding cycle. Usually the program is funded for now 5 years. So starting in 2024, once we receive our notice of award, which I'm confident we will receive, then we'll open up for recruitment. And that's where previous trainees become so critical and getting the word out that we are recruiting for the program. We have a centralized database where applicants would fill out their application, upload their CV and letters. And then after a pre-screen, those applications are sent to us. We have an admissions committee. We review the applications and decide which applicants have the right type of research. It needs to be heart, lung, and blood focused research, or sickle cell disease. We get a lot of young people doing sickle cell disease research, and then whether or not they have the environment and support at their home institution. This is critical. So we ask the chairperson to put in writing that this trainee is gonna have the protected time to be able to participate in the prior program 100%, and it's a year-long program. And if they pass all of those things, then we do now we do a Zoom interview. Once we say this is a good person to possibly recruit, after that, our admissions committee makes a recommendation. And hopefully, for instance, we'll start recruiting in the winter of 24 or the summer of 24. So it's really short. That first year is a quick turnaround. And so people being able to make the commitment. The first year of training, Summer Institute is 2 weeks. And then they have a mentoring on, networking, peer mentoring throughout the year. And then they come back the subsequent summer for a second Summer Institute, which is shorter. We just do 10 days. We're kind of playing around with whether the second institute will be virtual, because it is hard for individuals now to stay for that long. And after COVID, everybody's pretty much gone to some type of virtual. So you get a in-person interaction, which is so important to get to know your mentee colleagues. And then the second summer, maybe do a little bit of virtual mixed in with it. And then after that, you get a certificate of completion from Dr. Gibbons at NHLBI. And since after you train, starting with the last cohort, they now give pilot funding. Yes, for research pilot project to help jumpstart the mentees training. So we're very excited about that. We now have 4 cohorts who have been funded through NHLBI, and we're waiting to see if it translates into more grants and funding. But it's wonderful. Have a little bit of money to get started. It's not quite as much as like a K-12, but I think it's wonderful to have that pilot funding. So you get training and you get a little money.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Well, tell us, what's the inclusion and exclusion criteria?
Okay, it's for underrepresented junior faculty. You have to have a faculty position. So you can be finishing your fellowship, and if you have your letter of offer signed, we can take you. And underrepresented is defined based on NIH definition. African American, Hispanic, Native Islanders, etc. That definition. You have to be a U.S. citizen. What else? You have to be committed. You have to commit to spend and have the protected time to participate. And disabled junior faculty. We're actually looking to help train some disabled faculty. And if you have a disability, you can be any race. It doesn't have to be underrepresented. So those are the main criteria. Assistant professor level is what we most commonly see. Occasionally, we'll admit an associate professor, but in general, assistant professor, instructors, for the bench research and research scientists, they have a faculty position. I think that's mostly care. Did I miss out? Did I leave anything out?
Now, do they have to be a Research One institution to participate?
A research, what institution?
Like a Research One institution?
No. The PRIDE program is there to help anyone who wants to improve their skills, experience mentoring, and be successful in their career. Our mentees have come from the Ivy League institutions, Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins, all the way down to the community colleges, the community undergraduate colleges where they teach. They have a chance to do some bench research, our PhDs. And we've been able to turn some of those people, their careers around, and they get funding and they do better and be able to get more protected time. But we really look at each individual candidate, their potential to be successful, how much they want it, and if they have the support at their institution. So I would say we go this full spectrum and across the country. We have people from all the way East Coast, New York, all the way down to San Diego. So, but the majority of our trainees come from around Augusta, the Augusta, Georgia area, and then a lot come from the Midwest. So,
Okay. Is this only MDs or is this PhDs as well?
you have in any degree, it could be MD, MD, PhD, straight PhD, veterinary medicine. We've had people in that, nurses, PhDs. We have a really strong cohort of nurses who are doing research, DO. So as long as it's a recognized faculty position, I would say about 50% of our trainees are bench researchers and about 50% MDs.
Okay.
So it's a pretty hefty split, equal split between them. But then the majority of our trainees are doing either bench research or clinical research related to sickle cell disease.
Okay. Now, I want to ask you about the peer mentoring program. You have a pretty unique component with the peer mentoring. Do you want to speak about that?
It is wonderful. We started the peer mentoring program with our last round of funding for Pride 3. And we just started off experimenting. I did some reading on it and, kind of the pros and cons of peer mentoring and so forth. But in general, I thought it was more positive than negative. And so we teamed up with our education institute on campus, and we used that faculty who has some expertise in it to actually set up a peer mentoring program. I can't remember, did you have peer mentoring during?
Yes, I did.
Okay, great,
I think I may have been the first cohort.
Okay, very good, very good. And it was so overwhelmingly successful. Everybody thought it was just awesome. And you need many different types of mentors.
Yes.
You have your environment, your institution mentor who help you with, your promotion package and help you with your career development in your institution. And you have research mentors who help you and know expert in your research area. And then we have the peer mentoring. They're experiencing the same thing as you. And so they have a different perspective that they can give to their peers and they feel more comfortable talking more freely with your peer mentor than you might feel talking to your research mentor or someone in your home department. So I think when you put that all together, we call that a mentoring team, different components. So the research mentor, academic development, career development mentor, peer mentor, and then we always include the home research or advisor as well. So we have 4 members of the research team. And Pride actually supports someone who's a leader in the field. Our mentors in Pride are top notch. From Harvard, and it's wonderful. I've never had anyone turn me down to be a mentor that I've been invited to the program who I felt could contribute. We have people like Dr. Mohan Naria, who has been a mentor in the Pride program since 2006.
Wow.
That's, he's popular every year, and he always participates, very strong supporter. And so we have a cadre of mentors with different expertise. So we try to build a team so that you can get everything you need. And so we've continued the peer mentoring program. We actually had our first publication on it, which was wonderful. And thank you for
Congratulations.
And so that we will keep. We decided to formalize it, keep it as part of even the next round of funding and see if we can kind of expand it. But overall, it's very successful. And that's based on the response of the mentees.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Wow. I feel like I've asked you as much as I can remember to ask you. What haven't we talked about the Pride program that we should mention?
I think we talked everything about the program. We had the teaching faculty, but I've been amazed at how dedicated faculty have been to the Pride program and their willingness to come back the next year and support it. I think it gives them a sense of accomplishment, and they've contributed to something that's important. So from our teaching faculty, we have people who've been teaching a certain topic since 2006, coming every year and teaching it faithfully. We have mentors like Dr. Narla. And then we have our staff, which is wonderful. Natasha Alford, who is our program coordinator, and Mayoko Takazaki, who is our research coordinator. They are absolutely wonderful. I always say they run the program. Our program is unique, which we haven't talked about, and maybe you can comment on that as well. Our Summer Institute is a combination of didactic and bench research. So where you go into the lab and actually conduct some bench research, and we always have people who want to apply say, well, is that going to be useful for me? I'm a clinician and I want to do clinical research. And I always say, you learn how to do structured research, which can then help you do even better in your clinical research, taking care of your patients. You learn appropriate approach, learn how to read the literature better, what's a good study, what's not a good study. And even though you may not continue to use that laboratory technique, it expands your experience.
Mm.
It really does. It makes you appreciate the person who's doing advanced research.
Mm-hmm.
Where they collect data for 5 years and get one paper. When everyone that was concerned when they applied always come back and say, wow, that was a great experience. Don't take it away. It's just a little, just to get them introduced to it. And then, of course, the bench researchers love it. So we have to balance between our clinical and our basic science people. So there's something for everybody. So, do the didactic. Now we've expanded and we try to address what research is relevant at the time. So, for instance, 10 years ago, implementation research wouldn't have been relevant. Mm. And now the health services research, implementation science, public health research, health equity, we now try to cover those topics for whatever our mentees need and what their area of specialty is. So we're ever-changing program as far as the focus. But always sickle cell disease.
Yes.
You wonder why that is, right? I think it's because I attract a lot of sickle cell disease researchers. Well, that's my field. That's what I love. And then actually having an African-American director as a role model as well. I think that's very important in the Pride program. And then one other thing that we've tried to change is the majority of our trainees are women. Over the 16 years, about 70% women. And so we really want to try to get more men involved. So that's going to spread the word around and get more men to participate. But it's not just our program, it's all the Pride programs. So the trend in medicine, I think, and research.
Can you speak to that a little bit? What is going on? Why do we have fewer men interested?
It's a bigger issue in medical school. If you look at the numbers for the AAMC, there are more women who apply, more women who are admitted to medical school, and you're feeding that pipeline, so it's just going to continue further down the pipeline. It's interesting. In the beginning, it seemed like the men are not getting the support, or the women are more ambitious and motivated. I don't know which one it is. Probably a little bit of both. But however, it flips when a male gets a faculty position. An underrepresented male will have more chances for mentoring than an underrepresented woman. Mm. And I in myself, I was fortunate to have one person who cared about my career and kind of, helped me go along and stay on the right path. But I hear so many women talking about they don't have mentors in their institution. So I think that it's just a trend. There are more women than men. I think the numbers are not quite equal. And we're hoping that there's a lot of effort to turn it around, though, to get more men involved. I did a little more heavy promising to men if they participated in the Pride program, give them a little extra kind of thing that it actually helped. So we, in the last couple, 3 cohorts, we have like a good 3 or 4 men out of a total of about 10 trainees. So we're turning it around, but it's a concerning trend that's going on.
Mm, mm. Well, thank you for everything you do to
Mhm,
increase
mhm,
diversity in research. And you've been so successful, and I appreciate all the
mhm,
work you've done.
mhm,
Do you have
mhm.
any closing comments for our audience?
Well, I think that you had asked me what would be a burning question for me related to mentoring and what I've been able to accomplish in the Pride program is I would ask the public, even when I received my award for leadership and diversity for ASH, my plea to the ASH membership is everybody needs to mentor. Everybody should have some degree of commitment to mentoring the younger generation, because if we don't do it, no one will, and the younger generation will not have the keys they need to be successful. So there are faculty I know who've never mentored anybody. They're very successful, big grants, big labs. They only mentor, maybe a postdoc, but they don't take to heart, other junior faculty. And they build strong programs, but they don't reach back and, kind of pay it forward to the next generation. So I'm very concerned and always making a plea for people to be more sensitive to mentoring and be more dedicated to mentoring um, throughout their career. Throughout their career, I just don't think that we have enough people who want to train and mentor people. So
Why do you think that is?
it is hard work.
Mm, yes, you can say
It
that
is
again.
hard.
It's like a new baby in a diaper.
Work. It's like having a house full of children. Yeah, especially something like a Pride program where you being a mother figure to 10 junior faculty a year. And they always, even though I might not be their assigned research mentor, it's sort of like a given fact that Dr. Pace is everybody's mentor, and they feel they can call on me at any time. So,
And we
and
can, and we
sometimes
do.
and I try to answer, because once you become a part of the Pride cohort in the village, we're always there for you. That's what we tell people. But it is, I remember early on, I was like, can I do this?
Mm.
The first funding cycle, it was so hard, the amount of planning and arranging for the summer institutes and support. And you know how we waited on you all hand and foot.
Oh, you do? Got the royal treatment.
Yeah, we want ours to be the best. It's like, if I'm not going to do it if it can't be the best. And so it was a lot. It's a lot of work, and then keeping it up in between the institutes. Some years we have 2 sets of cohorts, up to 20 trainees. The whole month of July is like training people. And I did get discouraged in the first round of funding and say, can I do this? And then you haven't seen the fruits of your labor yet.
Mm.
The trainees need time to see that they're going to get the grants, get the promotion. So, and then, like with everything, there are some trainees who were a little bit ungrateful for their experience, but it is what it is. So I think it took time for me to say, I'm doing this for me,
Mm.
that it's important that I do it because I love doing it.
Mm.
And don't expect any praise or thanks or, just do it. It's nice when people say thank you, like, you show your appreciation, because at least you're saying, okay, I'm accomplishing what I need to accomplish. However, you can't be in this business looking for someone to praise you and to
Mm.
kind of motivate you along. It has to come from within.
Mm.
So, but it is hard work.
Mm.
It really is. How do you do a lot of mentoring?
Well, this podcast is part of one of my efforts
Okay.
because what I see is that there's
Mhm,
such a gap in knowledge. And like
mhm.
you, I feel that if people just had information before they start the faculty
Sure.
position, so
Sure.
much harm would be avoided.
Mm.
But I still think people can turn it around too. And
Yeah.
so a lot of it is getting information out there. So yes, but I feel like I mean outside of a training program, you can't there's not that many you can mentor at one time.
Yes. Well, I still do my one-on-one, in the lab, not as much because the PRIDE program has kind of consumed my effort for mentoring. But if a student want to do summer research with us, we actually had a medical student who was funded by ASH to spend a year doing a
Oh
short
wow.
research project with us. So I still do that. I'm not no longer training any more PhD students. I graduated my last PhD student, so you can mentor in that way. But yeah, you're right. It's more difficult if you're not having the time one-on-one. And I'm also faculty in the graduate school. And that's where the majority of the training will come from. In medical, you're just going to have the fellows, and they tend to be a different type of mentoring.
Sure. Sure.
So yes.
One
Go
thing
ahead.
I've done more of is coaching because I can't mentor as many people intensely, but
Okay.
I can coach people through and connect them to
Wonderful.
resources. So
So what
that
is the difference between coaching and mentoring?
wow. So, I feel like if I say mentoring is more like to some extent it's more like mothering, right? It's the labor pains of bringing people forward. Coaching I think is more I you do the work. If you want to do it, you do it. But
Okay.
helping you figure out what resources do you need to access so you can move
Gotcha.
forward. So it's
Inter-
very much dependent on the person to move forward. Yeah.
Interesting. So I guess that means I'm both a mentor and a coach.
Yes,
But
you are.
I can kick you in the butt.
And that's as part of some of the training I did, to be able to mentor as a coach. One of the things you said in the beginning that really resonated with me is that we start from what people love to do.
Mhm.
Not having people say, "Can you just follow me? Just do what I do," which
Mhm.
yeah, you'll succeed, but you won't be happy. And
Yes.
so the
Yes.
coaching piece allows people to say, you tell me what is the future that gives you joy. Let's help
Mhm.
you create that.
Mhm.
And I think mentors could do that too. And maybe over time we'll have more mentors who are coaching too.
Sure. And even more important when you see a young person going down the wrong path, you say, maybe you should consider doing something else. I've coached in that way as well. And
Sure.
it turned out successful.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
it's sometimes just having that insight and working with the young faculty, not that you want to burst their bubble and, steal their dreams, but with that experience, you can kind of steer them in a better direction. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think
yeah.
ultimately it's caring enough about the person to get to know what they need so that you
Hmm.
can help them get there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, wonderful. I really have enjoyed
It's been
speaking
my
with you.
pleasure. Thank you.
And
Thank you for
congratulations on your effort
thank
and the
you. Thank
podcast.
you. Thank you.
Perfect fit. So let me know when it will air so I can listen. And then just send me the information on, when your podcast airs. I can listen in and learn something as well. You never stop learning.
Sure.
Really
Sure.
appreciate your time.
No, it's been my pleasure. All
Mhm.
right, for everyone who's been listening, you've heard Dr. Pace. If when it's time, if you are eligible for the Pride program, please. It is a phenomenal program. It
Mhm.
will change your life. And even if you feel like you're not eligible, still apply. And you'd rather be turned down than to actually not apply and you all along were eligible. All right.
And
Eddie,
and you can
yes.
go to our website, www dot Augusta at augusta.edu/pride.
All right. I'm
And
going to
that'll
put
give you
that in
information.
the show notes. So please
Perfect.
check the show notes so you can get that information. And
Perfect.
if they're looking for you, how can they find you?
B as in boy Pace at augusta.edu. Very
Awesome.
simple. You can put that there as well. So I'd love to
Absolutely.
hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you.